My name is Adam Murray, and I am an engineering manager here at Cypress, responsible for our Cypress Tools, which includes our plugins and our third-party integrations. So you may have seen me around our repos working on things like our Circle CI orb, our official GitHub actions, our Docker images, things like that. One of the other things I'm really excited to talk to today, though, is our Google Chrome Recorder extension that we've just partnered with the DevTools team on. So, Jecelyn, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Jecelyn. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jecelyn. I'm the DevTools engineer from the Chrome DevTools team, and our team working on Chrome DevTools and browser automation. Good to be here. Yeah.
Jecelyn, you also have someone else from the DevTools team here. Do you want to introduce them?
Yeah. Michael, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. That'll do work, right? Yes, there's a delay. Hi, my name is Michael. I am a product manager on the Chrome team focused on Chrome DevTools and Chrome browser automation. Nice to meet you all.
So we're really excited to talk to you today about this new about the recorder in DevTools and about the extension that Cypress has worked on. Jecelyn, do you want to go ahead and just take it away and present the first part?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen. I'm going to ask the questions that every presentation everyone will ask. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
I guess it's a yes. Okay. So before I show a demo on the recorder panel, I would like to talk about why do we develop that. Over and over, when Chrome, we do a survey with developers, we find out that the top developer pain points is end-to-end testing. Tools like Cypress already greatly reduce the difficulties on getting started in doing end-to-end testing. But in Chrome, we think that probably there's something that we can even help the frameworks and help developers to get started on doing end-to-end testing. That's why we built the recorder panel. It is an experimental feature. It's allow you to record, replay, and measure user flow. So let's jump into the demo. This is my page. I have a coffee page where you can click on a random coffee, fill in a form, and order some coffee. So what we will do today, we'll start recording the process to add a coffee and check out a coffee. If you open Chrome DevTools, you can click on the three-dot menu, More Tools, and from here you can see a recorder. You can open the recorder panel. There's an experimental icon here to show that it's an experimental features. From here, you can read how you can get started with 3 steps, or if you want to learn more, you can click on some of the resource here. What I will do is I will click on Start Recording, and there will be a default recording name provided to you. What I will do is I will change it to Order a Coffee, give my recording a name, and then click. So once I get started, you can see that there's this recording ... specify that the recording is already started. And go ahead and click on the espresso. And I like to drink mocha as well. Let's click on mocha as well. And you see that all the steps that I currently perform on the page is captured in the recorder panel. If you expand the step, you can see that it's captured the type of the event. It's a click, and it captures the most unique selector of the element. In this case, it's captured 4 different type of element. You can use the ARIA selector, you can use the data text selector, you can use the XPath selector, or you can use the text selector. At any point of time, you can remove it or adding in more selectors for your needs. So I will go ahead and click on the total, on the total button, and I will add one more espresso here. Next, I will click on it and fill in the payment form. I'll fill in my name, my email address, and click on the checkbox. And I will submit it. So this complete our checkout flow. Now, since I complete the recording, I will just stop it. This is the complete flow. The next thing you can do is you can click on replay to replay the flow. Let me just click on it. And you see that it will just run step by step here. In timeout. Let me just replay one more time. Interesting. Okay. So, you know, there's someone is saying that whenever you do a demo, sometimes something is not working. Let me just click on it and let's see why it is not working. So from here, you see that it's detect the selector. Probably in this case, the selector detect might not be the right one. So what you can do is you can click on this little selector icon here and click on it. You can update the selector without needing to type it yourself. Let's click on it and click on the selector again. And here I update the selector again to espresso and data test espresso, and we'll replay the recording again. So you see that now it's clicked through all the steps and it's successful now. Okay. The next thing you can do is just now the replay is replaying quite a fast sequence. Maybe you couldn't see it clearly on your screen. So what you can do here is you can click the drop down and you can replay it in a slow speed, very slow, or extremely slow. So let's just click on slow and click replay it. Then you can see it slightly clearer on the screen so that you can debug it and see it clearer. Another thing you can do is you can set a breakpoint and stop at each of the steps and debug it step by step. Let's click on the, so you can set a breakpoint here, like set a viewport. And then when you click start replay in the normal speed, what you can do is there's a continue to execute button, or you can replay this step by step. Let me set another breakpoint here. And I can say that please continue to replay it to the next step. And then it will stop at the next breakpoint. If I want to replay it step by step, I can just click on here and replay it step by step. That's nice. Not only that, if you want to measure the performance of this entire workflow, you can you can measure it with the performance panel or with the performance insights panel. If you click that, it will rerun. It will rerun the user flow, and then record the performance and show you how your page performance looks like and all the steps. So you can start analyzing your page performance from here onwards. Let me go back to the recorder panel. Not only that, if you want to, so just now, if you look at the step that I stepped here, for example, click an element, the espresso element. Here you can see that, oh, I'm using data test selector, but if you are using Cypress, most likely you are using data CY element. By default, we will capture data CY element as well. But in this case, because I've defined data test and data CY in the particular element, let me just show you that. So for each of the tests, I have the data test and data CY element. So if you just only have data CY element, the recorder will auto detect that as the primary selector. But if you have both, then we'll use that according to some sort of sequence. But no worries, what you can do is if you add a new recording and there's a new field here, which you can specify the selector. If you specify data-CY here, and you click on, for example, a cappuccino, and you press stop, you can see that now it will use data CY selector wherever it finds it. So it's very convenient. You don't need to do additional stuff. In any point of time, if you have if you want to add an additional step or remove some step, you can click on the 3-dot menu on every step here to add a step before or add a step after, and use the you can from the type, there are multiple elements, there are multiple actions that you can perform. You can use click, double click, or hover, it will capture that, or change element on, you can read our documentation for all types of steps that we support. After that, you can export it to different format. So by default, we support export it as a JSON file, Puppeteer, Replay, and Puppeteer. But there are more things that you can do, and you can export it to Cypress as a Cypress test script. I want to share like some history here. When we first released Recorder panel, Adam take a look, play around with the Recorder panel, and he reached out to me like say, hey, Jecelyn, the team would like to integrate with Recorder panel. And this is really good because it can help you to get started with Cypress tests even faster, just right in the browsers. So next I will pass to Adam to talk about how you can do that with Cypress extension.
Yeah, so like Jecelyn said, when I first saw this Recorder panel, I was extremely excited about it, like a lot of you are in the chat. I've just been reading through the chats, and I just thought this is like Cypress has to be a part of this. And so I do want to just get into the presentation part of that right now. Let me share my screen. Let's see, which one is it? Not that one. There we go. Okay, so first we're going to just talk about exporting recordings via Cypress extension. And just like Jecelyn did, I just want to jump right into the demo. So you know, let's do this thing, right? So Jecelyn talked about being able to export recordings. I will show, I saw a question pop up. Does Cypress appear in the list of exports? And I'll show you how it does. But I want to just show you how to import it real quick. So I'm going to take and open up my Google Chrome here. And I want to take this recording that Jecelyn has just done, and I want to import it. So I'm going to open up the Recorder panel from DevTools. And you can see I have nothing right now. Let me get this off my screen. So I have nothing right now. So I'm going to go up here to this little icon right here and click it. And it's going to ask me, do I want to, you know, what to import? So I've got this order a coffee JSON file right here. Let's open that up. And you'll see that it just imported all the steps via that JSON file that Jecelyn just walked you through. Same way I can go and I can replay it because, you know, maybe I'm not sure like what it is. I don't know what this file is that she just sent me. So I go through and I replay it just like she did. And the next thing I want to do is I want to export this. One of the important things that Jecelyn talked about was if you export via Cypress, you do get that default data sci selector attribute. So if your pages already have the data sci selector attribute, you know, you'll get those for free. Yep. So let me jump in here. So you click this little export tab or the export icon, sorry, and you go down, you'll see export as a Cypress test script. And so we want to export that, and it pops up with this save dialog. Thing you'll notice here is it doesn't give you the option to save it as a certain file type. That is, in my understanding, is that's a security concern. So you have to actually add the extension yourself. And so I'm using Cypress 10. And so we'll add .sci.js and save it into my demo folder. And so I'm going to save that. And then let's open that up just to see what it looks like. Okay, so now you'll see it's here in my folder. And I want to go ahead and I want to open that with, well, let's see. Let me just list here. And first of all, I want to go ahead and open this up and put that in. Let's open up with VS Code so you can see what it looks like. And you'll see that I now have the Cypress test here. So first thing, it just has a basic describe and it block. So it's going to say it's just order a coffee. It's going to have this test here. The first thing that it's going to do is set the viewport size. So that's always one thing that's in the Cypress or in the Chrome Recorder. It always sets that viewport and always visits. Now we visited an external URL. It's just as easy to actually use this on localhost. So you can test this locally. You don't always have to have this as an external URL, but it's going to go ahead and visit that. And then you'll see it's going to go through and get the element with the data test attribute of espresso and click that, go all the way through. It even triggers a mouse over on this checkout. It's going to go through and you'll see lots of clicks here. One of the other things we have is it gets that name, that element with the name ID and then types in JEC. and types in Jecelyn's email and then clicks through all the way. So this is the test that she just showed you, the replay that she just showed you as a Cypress test. So we obviously want to run this test. So let's go ahead and let's do that next. So I got a demo app set up here in Cypress. So we're going to go ahead and start end-to-end testing. Right now, we don't have any specs in here, so I need to go and let me create that folder in our Cypress folder. Let me just go ahead and new folder called EDE. And then in our EDE folder, let's put in this order coffee sign. Now you see instantly in Cypress, this is Cypress open mode. It went ahead and detected that I have that spec in here now, so I can run this and see what it looks like. It's gonna go ahead and do all that. So now you get that test that you just exported right here in Cypress, and you can go through and step through it in our time travel, just like with everything else, and get the snapshots that you need, look at every element that was clicked on, and you know, all the goodness that's in Cypress you get. So same thing here, you could also inspect this and get your dev tools from this panel just as well. And so you have a fully fledged Cypress test. Now, a couple of things to note here, and you know, I know there's lots of questions that are coming about this. Assertions, one of the things we don't have right now is the ability to just have those assertions get ported over. One of the things, you know, if you've been doing Cypress for a while, you kind of know every one of these lines is in and of itself an assertion. And so, you know, if one of these fails, the whole test will fail. The important thing is you can go back and add those assertions if you want. You can go back and add more tests if you want. Currently in the process, it's a one-to-one. So if you create one workflow, you're going to get one describe and one it block. And so we can work on those things in the future. We're always continuing to add more and more functionality in this. Let me go back to the presentation, and let's see. There we go. Okay, so some things to note. Just want to remind you, you definitely should utilize custom selector attributes if you're not already. They make your tests where they're not going to fail. They're not going to be as flaky, as brittle. You know, you not have somebody accidentally change an ID or change a class or change something like that. The other part is if when you start to export things, you're going to notice that they get kind of long because the Google team, the DevTools team, has done a fantastic job of the selectors, and they kind of get way down in there. The hard part about it is when you export those, sometimes they're not as readable as you would like. So using those custom data selectors makes them very readable, and it's just a good best practice for Cypress to use those. Every line in Cypress is an assertion. Like I said, if you want explicit ones, you'll need to add them. And then this is a very active project. So if you have a feature request or an issue, please file it in the repo that we have, which is the GitHub /Cypress Chrome Recorder. The extension is a separate repo, but that's really, I mean, that's there too if you wanted to edit it. But the meat and potatoes, like the actual part of it that's doing the exporting and the changing things around, is this Cypress Chrome Recorder repo. Just like Jecelyn said, there was a recent update to the replay library where they can do XPath selectors, and they can do, what was the other one, Jecelyn? XPath and
text selector.
Yes, and text selector. So we will be getting those into the project. The difficulty with XPath, we do support XPath if you use the Cypress XPath plugin, which my team is also responsible for, and we recently moved into the core repo. So that is some things to note about this. Jecelyn, I'm going to pass it back to you to talk more about Puppeteer.
Okay. I like Cypress export as well because the JSON file that you just recorded, it can replay in the Chrome browser itself. But if you export to Cypress, you can replay it in other browser like Firefox. On the screen, you can see it. Yeah. So let me just share my screen. There are a couple of more ways that you can use you can replay the JSON file. So just now, Adam showed you how you can export the JSON file into Cypress test script. But if you just want to download it and integrate it with your CI/CD and just run the JSON file itself, you can do that by using the Puppeteer replay library that the Chrome teams release. So these are the steps that you need to install the Puppeteer replay and install Puppeteer. Once you install that, the next step is if you can run npm replay the user flow JSON to replay one of the file, or if you replay more than one file, you can run npx replay the entire folder of JSON file. Let me just show you a quick demo here. So in this folder, I have 3 JSON file here. So what I will do is I will run npx replay the recording folder and all the JSON file. Once I run that, you can see that it will show you the status of each of the run, and then it will show you the status after a successful run or it's failed to run and what are the durations of the running. And not only that, just now Adam showed you how you can export the Cypress test script from the DevTools recorder panel itself. There's another way to export Cypress test script as well. You can run npm install Cypress Chrome recorder, and once you do that, you can export a Cypress test script from just one JSON file, or if you want to export multiple JSON file into Cypress test script, you can do that with the same command, but passing in the recording folders and other path to export more than one file. It's very convenient for you if you want to batch export all the JSON file into Cypress test script. Yeah. Adam, next thing, not only that, you can actually build, customize, and extend your own extension or build your own library for the recorder. I have a link here. Today we have limited time because this thing worth a section of itself. But you can check out this link here to know how you can build your own extension. For example, after each of the steps, you want to take a screenshot, you can actually write your own library to do that. Or if you want to build an extensions to do some other stuff, you can as well. Check out this link. With that, I think that's all. We'll jump into the Q&A sections to answer some of your questions. Okay. Adam? Yeah.
Yeah, so for our Q&A today, we have, first of all, thank you all for posting really great questions here. I think to try and keep this a little bit organized because there are a ton of really good questions. We can start perhaps with the questions that were noted to answer live. Is that an okay place for you to start, Michael, or do you want to start with other questions? Perfect. Okay, there was a couple that he had marked as answer live. So we can go through a couple of those and the three of you can answer those. And then once we finish with that, we can go back into the Q&A, and those that are the highest upvoted questions we'll start with first and then kind of work our way through there as well. Sound good? Cool. All right. Back over to you guys.
Okay, first you need to tell me how I can filter for answered live questions. I marked them, but I can't find them anymore.
That's what I was wondering too.
You can filter them when you go over to answered, and then the top button, there's a sort by upvotes that you can sort by, and it'll show you over in the corner which ones have been answered live.
Okay. I see. I did it wrong. I understand.
Oh, good. No worries.
It wasn't answered live. Okay. Well, let's go from top to bottom. So Ashikur was asking, how do you automate iframes with same origin policy using a recorder? As Jecelyn already mentioned, what the recorder is using is Puppeteer under the hood. So if you can automate it with Puppeteer, you can also automate it theoretically with the recorder. The escape hatch is always export to Puppeteer script or export to JSON, and use the replay library to actually craft your test script. Built-in support, so you can automate iframes also with the recorder out of the box. But there's right now a few race conditions you might run into, in particular also if you have core problems, and so on. So if they are embedded from another domain. Okay, next question. Forgive the question, but will this work in other Chromium-based browsers? Oh, that was, yes. Right now it's closed source because it's experimental. So that's why we haven't upstreamed it yet, because we still iterated in particular on the UI a lot and on the functionality. let's see what the future brings. Having said that, the replay library that Jecelyn also showcased and Adam also have shown, and the extension interface, that is open source already. So another live question from Kevin. Can this be exported as a TypeScript file? Yes, Jecelyn did a pitch for you can write your own extension. Yes, you can write your own extension that not exports to JavaScript, but exports to TypeScript. We actually, I think that was one of the test cases that we had when we were trying out the extension interface and stuff like that, as far as I can recall. Jecelyn might know more about that. Yeah, next live question from Kayo. Is the extension focused on what part of the development team? That's an excellent question. As a QA, doing this kind of stuff is pretty easy, but extension would help like the support team to be able to share with the dev team reproduction steps and so on. Yes, exactly. So the initial idea was creating a macro recorder that the developer can use to reproduce bugs and also use it to feed, for example, into our performance panel and so on, and also use it to start bootstrapping test cases. That's where how the recorder was born. And right now we are taking a deeper dive into the use case of bootstrapping developers in particular to create test cases. With the goal, hit the export button, put them into your source code repository, because you will want to run them in your CI. You should be running them in CI. So, which means this is focused for web developers, and yes, if a support department is, let's say, comfortable using DevTools, it's also a good way to actually share reproduction steps. End users, I wouldn't recommend them using DevTools, because DevTools is an expert tool and you can easily do very, things in there that you shouldn't be doing as an end user. Because it's a debugging tool and is very powerful. Jecelyn, should I keep on answering or?
I see there's a few questions for the Cypress team as well. What is the biggest difference between this Chrome extension and Cypress Studio? Adam?
Yeah, I saw that one as well. Sorry, just kind of this. Oh, I'm still learning the Q&A part too. So the biggest difference right now, so it's important to remember these things are not necessarily in feature parity. So they are separate products, and they're being developed kind of along separate lines. The Cypress Studio was just reintroduced recently, and Cypress Studio does a lot of things very similar as far as having the ability to have selectors and interactions and things like that, and exporting them right within the test runner, which is great. But this is a separate product, and it's kind of a separate thing. So I would say again, the biggest difference, there's not a whole lot of difference, but you will start to see them kind of diverge just because they're not the same products.
Yeah.
But again, at Cypress, for us, we really see this as just another way for people to kind of be a part of the ecosystem, to get in the door. It's meeting the needs of other personas that are out there and that are in the testing space, and we see it as an extremely valuable tool.
Nice. I saw another question. Some people are asking that does it support Cypress Intercept?
Yeah, so that was one thing we talked about recently, and I know it's been brought up as far as a feature request for this is having some more network ability, like to see network requests, what's going on with that. I think Michael might be able to speak more to that and what the future of that looks like. But once we get there with this, then yes, it could support Intercept. Yes, it could support all those kinds of things. But right now, we don't really have insight because of the JSON file that's given to us on Cypress side. We don't have insight into network and what's happening in the network side.
Yeah.
The next.
To add to that, it's like then it starts to get in the boundary. Probably at that point, if you start tinkering with network requests, probably writing Cypress script or Puppeteer script might be the more appropriate choice, because then you're leaving this bootstrapping phase.
It's a good point.
The next question, I can take that. Have you guys identified any limitations with Google Records? I guess you mean the recorder panel. There are a few things that we currently not supported yet. For example, now we cannot show you the emulate screen. So one of the popular things that we see developer asking is, can I emulate it in an iPhone or Pixel screen and then record that? Currently, it's not supported yet, but we are aware of that, and the team is trying to figuring out how we can do that. And one of the things that we also not supported yet is the drag and drop features. Some of you, if you have a map or if you have something that you need drag and drop, currently that actions is not captured in the recorder yet, but we are aware of that. Send us your feedback. In the recorder panel, you can see that there's a send feedback button right there. Just click that and fill in your request, and the team, me and Michael, will read through them and see how we can do with it. Yeah.
Yes, and so there are extensions that actually run then recordings in emulations or on physical hardware from vendors. I'm not going to let us know, but yeah, that's why we build the extension interface, because yes, it's going to be vast, like emulation running on physical hardware and so on. We can't build that. We don't want to build that, but there are excellent vendors like Cypress out there, or other infrastructure providers that can do that much better.
There's an interesting question here. Do you recommend using XPath? I never need them in more than 10 years automating web tests. Adam, do you want to take this?
Yes. Oh, hold on. Oh, where'd it go? 1 second.
I remember there is a good talk by the Cypress team on what are the best selectors that you should use, how to make your test more reliable, because the selector is the first step for you to build a reliable test. Yeah.
So I will say, I personally do not recommend using them. With that said, though, there is a large community that does use them. As a person who interacts regularly with the XPath plugin, I know that there are a ton of downloads for that, and they're also heavily used in the Angular community and other places. So because of that, even though I personally don't recommend them, I do recognize that there are a lot of people that use them and that we should support them because of those users.
Yeah, I especially don't recommend them if you are using a really long XPath, like you have like multiple deep down div paragraph or another sections, because in deep down this is very fragile and it's easily broke your test. But if you are using more straightforward XPath, like if you are using XPath with select the attribute, a certain data test or any attribute, a shorter one, then it would be fine. But it's the longest your XPath be, the more fragile your test will be. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is, any support for environment variables? So from the recorder side, we don't support environment variables out of the box. But when you export to Cypress, I guess on Cypress you can define.
So yeah, inside Cypress you can use environment variables, but that would not come over from any recording. So you'd be required to code those in Cypress.
Okay. Questions from Tripty. Can the recorder identify iframe element? Michael already covered just now. If your elements can be captured by the recorder, it will shows you the iframe URL if it's the iframe. So once you can capture that, you can record that as well. Yeah. Is question from Grable. Is it possible to use recorder with REST UI like Swagger? Give it a test. You can open your Swagger REST UI. I'm not sure whether your Swagger REST UI is already like on the web page or how is it like, but give it a test run and let us know if it's working for you. If it's not, if you think that we should support it, give us the feedback.
Yeah, there was one more on here that I just wanted to, I know it's further down, but it's if you select an element by text, does that convert to sci contains? Right now, we don't support selecting an element by text because that was just released. So I saw Jecelyn put an issue in the repo. So when that is, when that PR does go in, yes, it will use sci contains. It just doesn't currently.
Someone asked a very interesting question here. How can we make Chrome Recorder or Cypress work with Web3 wallet? Adam, do you want to?
I don't know. I don't see this one. Where's the question at?
It's from Francis. From the bottom. Yeah, how can we make Chrome Recorder and Cypress for Web3 wallet. Web3 is currently Chrome browser doesn't support Web3 yet, but I know that there are MetaMask, but currently Recorder probably doesn't work with that. You can give it a run. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. I've not done any sort of work with Web3, so sorry.
Yeah. Christoph asked a question, is the extension able to record where you move the mouse pointer in order to activate the hover effect? This is a good question. You know why the test I run failed just now is because for the hover step, just now remember I hover to the button and I add an espresso. The hover step, you need to add it manually of yourself, because during the capture, you are basically hover on every element. So what you need to do is after you're recording, you need to manually add a step before and say hover to the step and click the element to select it so that you can hover to the step. That's the reason why the recording that I showed just now failed. Yeah, so you definitely can we capture the X and Y position as well during the test. If you expand it, you can see the X and Y position. So that is capture, and you can use that for the hover effect, definitely. Yeah. Do we still have time, Emily? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Does this record the auth token, or do we have to update the exported text with the auth stuff? This is a good question. So if you imagine that you are in the login screen and then you fill in your username and password and then click login, we'll capture all these steps during the export. However, if you are starting your recording after you log in, we do not capture your cookies or anything else and export it by default. We'll just capture all the steps that you perform on the screen. Yeah.
May I add? I also see a lot of questions regarding assertions. So yes, you can add assertions or arbitrary JavaScript and go wild in there.
So
only certain set of assertions, but yeah.
So currently so I have a video to talk about this. So if you go to later, we'll share like all the links that you can get and to view more. So there are currently two types of assertion you can do. If you just want to count if the element on the screen is correctly shown, like I want to show 9 coffee on the screen, you can there's a button that you can say add operator and add how many count of the elements that you want it to show. And the other type of assertion is that you need to write a JavaScript like document query selector, select that element. And if you want to assert the text, you need to write the whole assertion yourself. We know that currently this is not the best way to do assertion because you need to write a long list, but this is something that we are aware of. Yeah. Okay. John asked about what about Angular, Vue, React? Does this help create more detailed testing for things like data state value? Interesting. From the recorder itself, we'll capture wherever your screen action is. So if you have any so if your data state is according to the UI, like if you want to test a form, if the warning bar show up or anything, you can use the recorder to test it. But if you want to test some details, I don't know, like your data, if you want to test your data object, the whole object itself, we do not support that. Yeah. But I know Cypress have component testing introduced recently. Yeah. Adam, do you want to say? Yeah.
Yeah, no, you said it just right. I mean, this thing, it's just really, concerned with the UI and what's happening in the UI at the time. So I think those data state values, you're not gonna be able to assert on those if it's underneath the hood at the time.
Okay. Taylor asked a question on will it captures recording for JS JavaScript conforms and prompts. I guess the prompts that you mentioned is the dialog pop-up.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember we did capture the dialog pop-up in the recorder. You just test this out. Yeah. Michael asked a question, will the recorder show the selector by ID if exists? So we have an article to talk about the sequence of the selector that we are using. So the first one, if you have defined your custom selector, let's say you have your unique selector like data test group, this is your custom selector. If you define that, we'll use that by default. The next things that we'll use is we'll try to search on your element if there are there's some popular common test selector like data test or data CY or data QA, this sort of ID, then we'll also auto detect that. And then the next level is the unique ID. So if you have a unique ID using in the element itself, we'll detect it as well. So it's based on which one that we detect, and we'll pick one of it. Yeah, so yes, we do select the selector by ID. JM asks, maybe you have covered it. Is this able to mock the route? The recorder pattern itself only support recording the action, so we do not support mocking your route or mocking any request. Questions from Ollie. What would be your initial thoughts of using the recorder alongside component libraries? Problem, I could see that they often don't allow data attribute. Use CSS module and integrate complex non-native components such as autocomplete and stepper. What would be your initial thought? Recorder alongside with. Personally, I haven't tried using the recorder with the components library. I'm not sure whether the component library, do you mean that the like Bootstrap component or some UI utilities? But whatever things that you can record from the UI, it can capture it. Give it a run. If it doesn't work, and again, if you think that it should, send us feedback and we'll add that into our requirement list. Okay, I think I'm going to drink some water. Michael, or Adam, do you want to
So I see a lot of questions also asking about Safari support. That might be something for Adam to cover.
Yeah, so I mean, we just introduced WebKit support. So if it's a Cypress test, it's going to run on WebKit just like it runs on anything else. So that's what Jecelyn was saying. Once you export that recording, even though it's coming from Chrome, once you export it into Cypress, it becomes a Cypress test, and you can use it on any browser that you have installed and that you run. So I mean, that's Firefox, that's Chromium, that's that any Chromium browser. That's obviously like Edge would be WebKit, anything like that. So yeah. One question I see here is record and play automation gets a bad rep when it comes to maintenance. How would you go about lowering test maintenance as the front end changes? And I know we've talked about this multiple times on the call, but I think that really starts with working with the development team and the QA team together on a good selector strategy, and nailing that down early. And I've worked with automation teams where the automation team had a very specific selector that they required on every element that they were testing. And that was to ensure that, those didn't change over time. So instead of, one thing, many people might go do is they might go create a bunch of workflows and a bunch of their tests. But if they're not doing it in conjunction with their development teams and with the applications that they're working with, those are going to be pretty fragile by nature, because those selectors could get changed at any time, or just the structure itself could get changed at any time if you're not aware of what's going on with feature development. So that'll be my recommendation.
Yeah, adding to that also, yes, tests will need to change because applications are changing all the time. So that's why we're also exploring options of helping developers to actually updating the tests, which is at that point probably more going to be focused around updating the scripts and selectors and less in the recorder user interface, because that's an abstraction. And if you already have your tests in your source repository, it doesn't really work out. So yes, updating selectors is one of those things that you will always face as a developer.
Well, but that's a great point, Michael. If you're using the recorder and you're using this extension in conjunction with that, you have all your recordings saved. And so you can technically go back anytime and edit those selectors and go back and make sure that those things still work in the recorder UI, right?
Yes, more or less, depending on how much you actually change then the script files. So
Yeah.
it can become very complicated, but yes, updating and maintaining tests, that's one of those bigger pain points we also identified when we interviewed people like, oh my God, how do I do that? Yes, and it's one thing we're exploring right now, how we can support developers actually finishing that task, because that takes time, that's frustrating, and we want to help them.
So I think we have time for maybe like 1 or 2 more questions if there's any highly rated ones. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get to every single question today. It's definitely because there are so many good questions that are asked in here. So when we're done with questions, we'll be able to share a slide that shows kind of where you can take some of these questions if they don't get answered today. It has no bearing on the quality of question that you asked, and just a bearing of like, there's only so many of us and only so much time today. So if any of you are seeing like 1 or 2 more questions that you absolutely want to make sure that we're answering, if you want to pull those, we can answer those last 1 or 2, and then we'll work on kind of wrapping up and talking about next steps from here, if that works for everybody.
Okay, let me look through the questions and pick one.
I will. I've seen a group of questions that I would like to address, and because I just answered one of the questions. But right now there's no ability to, there are multiple selectors that are coming out of the Chrome recorder, and that's the ARIA selectors. You've got your by ID, your custom selector attributes. I mean, there might be 3 or 4 selectors that you have on an item. And right now, then the way that the recorder was built, there's not a way to select which one you want. And there's not a preferential, like one doesn't prefer over another. We kind of set that in the export originally. If you would like that feature, I would request that you go to the repo that has been mentioned a couple different times and file an issue and just ask for that. Or if you see an issue that's already there like that, just upvote it, and we'll make sure to add that into the roadmap.
Cool. I want to address the question from Daria. Will scrolling actions be involved if an element is at the bottom of the page? So during the recording of the particular step, we capture the X and Y position as well. So when we replay the step, we'll make sure that we scroll to that item into the view and then click on it. So yes, we'll capture the scroll actions. We'll automatically scroll the item into the view. Yeah. Michael, do you have any topic questions you want to answer? Last one.
Yes, so I have seen one person asking about Cucumber and stuff like that, and BDD frameworks. You know my answer. Yes, you can build an extension for that.
Yeah.
Like that is the idea. Like we can't solve every problem. We need to acknowledge that, but we have an excellent ecosystem, and that's why we build an extension interface, so people can actually build on top of us and leverage what we already have built, and they provide their expertise.
And if you want to learn how to build an extension, I would recommend you to read the source code from the Cypress Chrome recorder, because they did an amazing job to map all the steps and convert it step by step to the Cypress test script. And if you want to learn, you can read the source code as well. Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful. So I can, I'll go ahead and share some of our last resources, just so that everyone can get an idea of what's coming next. So from the Cypress community side, again, like I said, there are so many good questions on here, and there's just no way we could get to all of them. You can join us on Discord, and you can post there. We have a channel specifically about help. So if you're asking specific questions about like, I'm doing this and getting this, why is that happening? And you need that specific help, go find those help channels, post your questions there. We have amazing ambassadors in there, as well as Cypress team members that can be there to help answer your questions. We post all of our upcoming community events on our community events platform. We do have our next virtual event is going to be next month. It's going to be all about strategies to level up your Cypress tests and CI. We hope to be able to see you there. So those are kind of what we have from the Cypress side, but I also want to make sure that we get what these resources are from the Google side too. So I'll pass it over to them to share some of those.
Okay, so if you want to learn how to getting started with the recorder, you can go to this short link here. If you want to learn how to automate beyond recorder, how to customize or build your own libraries, go to goo.gle/extend-recorder. And the most important, if you want to send feedback to us, you can click on the feedback link, or this is the direct feedback link on the page that you can click and submit some of your feedback. And if you have any questions, feel free to tweet at us at Chrome DevTools channel. We are quite actively reply some of the queries there. Yeah, that's all
Love
from
it.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. So all of these resources will be in the YouTube description. So when you get a link to the recording, all of these resources will be there so that you can join us there. And we will, again, you'll get an email within 48 hours with this recording that you can go and reference and share with your colleagues and with your team. I believe that's everything that we have from the Cypress side. Is there anything else that anyone else from the presenter side wants to be able to share? If not, I can wrap us up.
Oh, good.
All good. Wonderful. Well, again, thank you all for joining. Thank you for asking such great questions. Thanks for being such a vital part of the Cypress community. We are super, super lucky to have a really wonderful community of Cypress users. And we're looking forward to connecting with you on Discord, on Twitter, on socials, hopefully some in-person events, and wherever you are, we hope to be there too. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.